Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
We in a quorum?
The Senate is not.
So, Mr. President, I see you. You are in your Ukrainian yellow and blue, as am I. And that's appropriate, because this will be a day to remember in the history of the United States Congress when we welcome President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. This is President Zelensky's first trip outside Ukraine since the beginning of Russia's invasion. The president of this young democracy will address members from both chambers in a joint meeting of Congress. It's always a high honor to welcome a foreign head of state to Congress, but it's nearly unheard of to hear from a leader who is fighting for his life, fighting for his country's survival, and fighting to preserve the very idea of democracy. It shows the importance President Zelensky places on us continuing to give him robust help. Where Winston Churchill stood generations ago, so too President Zelensky stands not just as a president, but also as an ambassador of freedom itself. Where Winston Churchill, let me just say that again because it's so important. Where Winston Churchill stood generations ago, so too will President Zelensky stand here today, not just as a president, but as an ambassador of freedom itself. President Zelensky could not arrive at a more crucial moment for the Senate. We're not only voting to approve more emergency wartime funding, but today, here in the Senate, we will also vote to confirm the U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Lynn Tracy, who will be tasked with standing up to Putin. We should complete our work on both. The omnibus with Ukrainian aid and the confirmation of our new ambassador to Russia very quickly. Now, Mr. President, I hope all House Republicans will attend the Zelensky address this evening. And when they do, they should listen to President Zelensky describe the horror his people have endured at the hands of Vladimir Putin. I hope that Donald Trump's friendship with Putin is not motivating House Republicans to turn a blind eye to Ukraine's suffering and desperate need for help, because the so-called friendship between Putin and Trump was a sour relationship that was deeply damaging to our country and to the international order. Excuse me. This week marks 10 months since Vladimir Putin began his unprovoked, immoral, and savage invasion of Ukrainian territory. While the conflict is sadly not near its conclusion, Russia's military is on its heels after a series of humiliating defeats, a testament to the Ukrainian people's bravery, resilience, and commitment to defending their homeland. Ukraine's success also shows that American support is working. To date, our funding has put more weapons in Ukrainian hands and more victories under their belt. Now is not the time to take our foot off the gas when it comes to helping Ukraine. The single worst thing we can do right now is give Putin any signal that we are wavering in our commitment to defend democracy in Ukraine and around the globe. By passing this omnibus and confirming a new ambassador, we can send President Zelensky back to Ukraine with the message that the Senate, the Congress, and the American people stand unequivocally behind the people of Ukraine. And we're backing that up with real dollars and real resources. I commend President Zelensky for his courage. I thank him for his leadership, and I will happily join Congress in welcoming him to the Capitol later this evening. Now on the Omni. As we speak, Democrats and Republicans are working on the final significant achievement of a truly significant 2 years in Congress, a year-long funding bill to avert a shutdown and keep the government working well into the next fall. Earlier this week, the appropriators released the text of the omnibus, a bill overflowing with good news for our kids, our parents, our troops, our small businesses, and more. The Senate took the first step to passing this bill last night, voting 75-20 to begin debate. Note the margin, 75-20. That is a strong signal that both sides are keen to finish funding the government very soon. We must finish our work before the deadline of Friday midnight. But in reality, I hope we can vote on final passage much sooner than that, even as early as tonight. There is no reason for the Senate to wait, and plenty of reasons to move quickly before a potential blizzard makes travel hazardous for members, their staff, and families right before the Christmas season. In an effort to reach final passage soon, both sides will continue negotiating a number of amendments that I hope we can begin voting on later today. But again, that's going to require cooperation. So I urge my colleagues not to stand in the way of moving this process forward. Nobody wants a shutdown. Nobody benefits from a shutdown. And so I hope nobody here will delay this process to fund government ASAP. Now, as I said yesterday, this bipartisan package is chock full of good news for our kids, our veterans, our small businesses, and even for our democracy. For one, we will pass long-sought reforms to the Electoral Count Act after a lot of hard work from Senators Manchin and Klobuchar and Collins and Blunt and many others. Now is not the time to take our foot off the gas when it comes to helping The 117th Congress began under the shadow of a violent insurrection, so it is fitting that one of our final actions will be passing a bill safeguarding our elections from future dangers. The omnibus also represents a major win for kids and parents across the country. It increases child care assistance by 30%. Our child care agencies are struggling. This 30% increase is a huge shot in the arm to help them. It's a massive boost for the tens of millions of families who can't afford this basic necessity. We have a shortage of workers. One of the reasons, not good child care. This helps alleviate that situation because moms, dads who want to take care of their kids but have to go to work can't go to work unless there's adequate and good child care. We're also taking a temporary program that helped kids eat during the summer during COVID and making it permanent, so parents won't have to worry about their kids going hungry during a day when school is not in session. I'm also proud that we got many of the best elements of the omnibus in this package. We'll ensure new mothers on Medicaid and CHIP can have a full year of postpartum coverage. That's a great breakthrough. We're increasing funding to train nurses and healthcare workers, as well as beef up support for mental health services, which I fought for very hard. Discrimination in maternal care and at birth is a real blot on our country. That people of color have higher rates of mortality for the moms and the kids is a disgrace, and this goes a good way to trying to rectify that blot on our country's pride. There's also some other good stuff. At a time in which we are seeing a surge in union activity because workers realize that to get adequate pay, adequate benefits, a union can help them. Democrats heeded the call and broke the nearly decade-long funding freeze on the NLRB. The NLRB was one of the very few agencies that got no increase in funding for years and years, despite the increase in mission. It's a very important priority for Democrats and for working Americans because the NLRB is one of the most important pro-worker agencies, and it's been utterly starved for resources for about a decade. So let me say it again. Kids, parents, veterans, nurses, workers. These are just a few of the beneficiaries of our bipartisan funding package. So there's every reason in the world for the Senate to finish its work as soon as possible. No one got everything they wanted. That's how this works. But we got a lot of good things in there to help America. I want to thank all of my colleagues from both sides of the aisle for their work. Let's finish the job today, if possible, by working together and cooperatively. I yield the floor.